Hello and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. My name is Anna Kalczynska and here are the latest. The Polish government is ready to take any action leading to the destruction of any objects, including Russian jets, should they pose direct threat to our security, said Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Tusk's remarks come on the heels of experts and some EU leaders arguing that NATO's response to Russian military provocations should go beyond intercepting jets.
On Friday, 3 Russian MiG-31 fighters entered Estonian airspace near Vaindloo Island without permission and remained there for nearly 12 minutes. NATO responded immediately and intercepted the Russian jets. Experts say it was a test and that these deliberate probes are meant to expose NATO's weaknesses along its eastern flank.
The 3 Russian aircraft that were flying around inside Estonia for about 12 minutes. These were not 3 pilots that were lost. This was a deliberate probe of our defenses to see how we would respond, how quick we would be. And I think what they're finding is that we still have not figured out how to stop these things.
In November 2015, a Russian Su-24 bomber ventured into Turkish airspace along the Syrian border. Within minutes, a Turkish F-16 fired an air-to-air missile and sent the jet crashing to the ground. And experts say the Turkish reaction is one to be followed.
Can we shoot it down? Yes, because this is about protecting our sovereignty, our collective sovereignty of the Baltic states, territories of the Polish or Romanian or Finnish territory. The question is, will we have the courage?
Nearly a decade after the Turks downed the Russian jet, the lessons of 2015 feel more urgent than ever. The recent incursion of Russian drones into Polish airspace on a single day was the first time a NATO member has directly engaged Russian aircraft since Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
The response needs to be likely heavier than it has been now, because as we've seen, Russia just continues to do all kinds of violations, and they're becoming more serious, as we saw in Poland, as we saw now in Estonia.
On September 19th, 2 Russian fighters violated the safety zone of the Petro-Baltic drilling platform in the Baltic Sea, an offshore installation owned by Polish state energy giant Orlen. On Monday, Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk stated Poland's readiness to take any decision aimed at destroying objects which violate the country's airspace.
We are ready for any decision aimed at destroying objects that may threaten us, such as Russian fighter jets, if they, for example, fly over our territorial waters. But I must also be 100% sure that all our allies will treat this in exactly the same way as we do. I must be 100% sure that when the conflict enters such an acute phase, we will not be alone in this.
With tensions rising and NATO responding with interceptions and statements, some say that's simply not enough. Critics point to a deeper issue, what they see as a lack of clear direction from Washington.
We know that Russia only respects strength and firmness, and right now they're not seeing it. And the failure of the United States to be an active voice here, the fact that President Trump does not seem to be willing to really inflict any kind of consequences on Russia for anything for the last 8 months, I think that also is what emboldens them.
While NATO can hope for the best when it comes to dealing with Russia, experts say it's time to start seriously planning for the worst. After all, staying one step ahead is part of keeping the peace. Hope is good, but preparation is better.
The European Union, meanwhile, is preparing its 19th package of sanctions on Russia, aimed at tightening pressure over Moscow's war in Ukraine. The measures will not include, however, a ban on Russian citizens entering Europe, sparking many concerns.
A ban on Russian LNG, tighter controls on banks, and possible tariffs on Russian oil delivered via the Druzhba pipeline. These are the measures which will be included in the EU's latest 19th sanctions package against Russia. Surprisingly, the package will not include a ban on Russian citizens entering Europe.
From the economic perspective, we should welcome Russian tourists in Europe, and the reason for that is, it's cynical, but it's obvious. When Russians come to Europe, they spend their money. They spend their money and they don't really get anything valuable in return.
The Russian opposition welcomed the decision, and so did Yulia Navalny, the wife of late Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who said that she appreciates that the European Commission made a distinction between, quote, ordinary Russians and the regime. But experts point out that the other side of the coin must also be considered.
It doesn't happen often, but it does happen once in a while that basically Russian assassins and spies and other agents of Russian government enter the EU under tourist visas, usually under fake persona, and they can enter the EU and travel freely, unwatched.
Ukraine also expressed concern, stressing that not just Russian President Vladimir Putin should be held accountable for the ongoing war, but also Russian society.
Russians willingly or unwillingly are supporting the regime and supporting the war right now. So making sure that it is not that this feeling of that you will be punished for launching the war, it should be instilled. And this is why there should have been a ban on Russian citizens into Europe.
The package must now be approved by all 27 EU member states. These include Moscow-friendly Hungary and Slovakia, who still rely on Russian oil imports and blocked EU sanctions packages against Russia in the past. The two countries have already expressed their readiness to block the new package of restrictions, and the European Commission has announced its plans to unfreeze approximately 550 million euros in subsidies for Hungary to change its mind on the issue. But will it? This remains to be seen.
The deputy head of the Ukrainian President's office has voiced concerns over Poland walking back social aid for Ukrainians living in the country. Iryna Vereschchuk added that Ukraine has to be prepared now for a social support system for those returning to the country.
According to Vereschchuk, the elderly, people with disabilities, single mothers, and other vulnerable groups have been left behind by recent restrictions in Poland. These include a veto by Polish President Karol Nawrocki last month on extending certain social programs for Ukrainians. As a result, child benefits will only be available to Ukrainians actually employed in Poland. As a result of the clampdown on social benefits, the former Ukrainian deputy prime minister said Kyiv would need to bolster its social support system for returnees. This includes extra housing and social, humanitarian, and medical aid.
Overnight, the fire broke out at an electrical substation in Russia's Krasnodar region after a drone attack. According to regional authorities, the fire did not cause any casualties and began after a drone wreckage crashed into the substation.
While Russian officials have not disclosed the full extent of the damage, Ukrainian Telegram media channels are saying that the substation was hit by drones at least 5 times. Furthermore, overnight Russian Telegram channels reported multiple explosions across the region. The strikes prompted authorities to temporarily suspend operations of the Sochi airport, disrupting 20 flights. The Krasnodar region, located just east of occupied Crimea, has become a common target of Ukrainian drones, as the region's infrastructure is critical for Russia's air operations in the Black Sea.
World leaders are gathering for the United Nations General Assembly meeting in New York. Throughout the week, officials will discuss Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Palestinian statehood, Iran sanctions, and UN reform, along with a range of other topics. As it marks its 80th anniversary this year, the UN is experiencing a variety of challenges. The organization's top humanitarian official, Top Fletcher, indicated that the UN is facing a perfect storm, underfunded, overstretched, and under attack. Since last year, the UN lost 40% of its funding, a consequence closely related to United States President Donald Trump's funding cuts. Among the leaders expected to deliver a speech at the meeting is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who will take the stage on Wednesday to address Russia's war in Ukraine. As 142 nations voted for an UN General Assembly resolution toward a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the recognition of Palestine will be high on the agenda. Due to Trump's denouncement of the move, the members of the Palestinian Authority were denied visas to attend the conference. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas will address the assembly via video on Thursday. Hungarians took to the streets in Budapest this weekend to protest against the government's use of public money to spread the ruling party's anti-EU and anti-opposition message. With both public and private media mostly under the control of Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, the opposition claims that the campaign for next year's parliamentary elections is unlikely to be fair.
Tens of thousands gathered in Budapest's Hero Square on Sunday, and they have had enough.
They spend money on billboards and adverts inciting hatred, lies, and totally senseless national consultations based on manipulation.
The opposition accuses the government of campaigning against the European Union, American philanthropist George Soros, and the domestic opposition, all under the guise of public information and leveraging public as well as private media controlled by loyalists of Prime Minister Viktor Orbán.
2 weeks ago, they fabricated a total lie using a document which is fabricated and is not from us, not from the TISA party, the main opposition party, expressing that we are planning to raise income taxes. And in the contrary, we are planning to lower income tax.
In a few weeks, the Orbán government is holding a so-called national consultation, this time on taxes. A similar referendum on Ukraine's EU membership bid earlier this summer cost approximately 28 million euros. In the polls, Orbán's Fidesz party is trailing the center-right opposition party Tisza of Peter Magyar. A surge in government spending for campaign purposes creates an uneven playing field, opposition politicians argue.
We, of course, don't have that much money, which the government has. Just to tell you, to smear me and to spread false information about me, the government spent several million euros on social media to spread false news just about my personality.
The parliamentary elections in Hungary are expected to be held in April next year.
Russia has come up with a plan to interfere in the upcoming parliamentary elections in Moldova, disrupting the country's path towards European Union membership. That's according to Bloomberg.
The goal of the Russian plan, according to documents reviewed by Bloomberg, is to undermine the chances of President Maya Sandu's Party of Action and Solidarity in the September 28th vote and ultimately see her removed from power. The strategy was finalized this spring and is coordinated directly by the Kremlin. Moldova, a former Soviet republic, has been a battleground between pro-European and pro-Russian political forces. The upcoming parliamentary elections come less than a year after Moldovans voted in favor of joining the European Union by a narrow margin in a nationwide referendum, which was overshadowed by accusations of Russian election interference.
Austrian oil, gas and chemicals group OMV has fired a senior executive over allegations of spying for Russia. A Russian diplomat was summoned to the Austrian Foreign Ministry in response.
According to Austrian news magazine Profile, the OMV employee allegedly attracted attention through meetings with a Russian diplomat suspected by Western intelligence services of being an agent of Russia's domestic intelligence service, FSB. OMV said it had terminated the employee's contract effective immediately. When asked about the matter, the Austrian Foreign Ministry said it was aware of the allegations and the pending criminal proceedings against the Russian diplomat. The chargé d'affaires of the Russian embassy in Vienna has been summoned to the Austrian Foreign Ministry, and a request has been made to strip the diplomat of immunity.
And now we're moving to Italy for something for the sailors in our audience. Yachts and boats are currently on display at the 6th Genoa International Boat Show. This year's event highlights the 23 new shipyards and 123 new vessels. Features over 1,000 boats and exhibitions from 45 countries from around the globe. As the famous saying goes, emptying your dishwasher and docking your boat are the two tests for a successful marriage. Thank you so much for staying with us here at the Midday Report. Please stay tuned to TVP World for more.